Welcome to the Studio 70 podcast. Our goal is for you to join in on real behind-the-scenes conversations about our projects and the people who make them happen. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, I'm Austin Parenti, Executive Director for Studio 70. In this devotional series, I'll be sharing God's Word with y'all, as I do with my students every day. Just a disclaimer, I am not a pastor. I'm just a film guy trying to make sense of the Bible. Enjoy. Our verse of the day comes to us from Colossians chapter 3, verses 22 and 23. This will cover Studio 70's third core value, fortitude. So let's see what God's Word has to say about fortitude. Bondservants, obey in everything those who are your earthly masters, not by way of eye service as people pleasers, but with sincerity of heart, fearing the Lord. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. I tacked on there verse 24 as well. This is a very, very strange commandment that sometimes we overlook because of our cultural context or the translation of the Bible. The term bondservants is used here. This is being addressed to a class of people who, might have also been considered slaves. What Paul here is saying is kind of startling for a 21st century listener. Slaves, obey your masters. Don't try to run from them. And that should maybe make you uncomfortable for a second until we, take a pause and realize that, hey, slavery in the ancient world, particularly in this time and place in Rome, looked very different than it did, in America's own history or other places currently in the world. Slaves in this time could actually, earn a living, potentially. They could perform in the theater sometimes, and they would even be able to purchase their own freedom if they earned enough money. And so truly the ESV, I do think, translates this very well. Bondservants, this is a conditional, somewhat temporary arrangement. In the same way, if I, tried to dine and dash from a restaurant and they caught me, they might make me do dishes to pay off my dues. It's a similar circumstance here. So I just say that because I don't want anyone to get tripped up here. So the verse, servants, obey your masters, or, something like employees, obey those who are above you, your bosses, and don't do it as someone who's just trying to, earn the approval of your boss, but actually do it with sincerity, fearing the Lord. In fact, whatever you do, you should work heartily for the Lord and not for men. This is crazy. I mean, really think about it. What Paul is opening up for us here is this concept that any work we do can potentially be devoted to the Lord as worship. That not only are the ministers in our churches or the worship leaders worshiping God with their daily work, but you and I can do the same when we commit to God the work that is before us. So for me as a filmmaker, I can make movies to the glory of God. I can put my best foot forward and try to tell tales that would ultimately delight God in the same way that a young child bringing their father some artwork, from school, though it might not be the highest quality, the father delights in it because it was made for him. Some of us are in a more challenging situation, though. Making movies is fun, and I can surely imagine, God delighting in our creativity. But if you have more of a mundane job, or for my students who are in classes that they might not enjoy, even in those classes, there's actually a deeper opportunity to glorify God in their work. To say, God, I don't like this class. I don't like this subject. I don't like this employer. I don't want to, therefore, work hard. But your word tells me to do so. And so, Lord, I'm going to work hard, not because I'm trying to make my boss happy, but because I want you to delight in my efforts. And so I devote this day's effort to you. The word fortitude means perseverance with patience. It's the idea that we will endure hard challenges, but not as like survivors, panting and barely crossing the finish line, but with a posture of peace. You could think of a great castle as opposed to, maybe a fort. A fort, will fall apart if it's made of wood. It will not stand the test of time. But castles, if you've ever been to Scotland, where I proposed to my wife, you'll see Kilchurn Castle. It somehow seems more beautiful as the centuries go by. As the moss grows and the wind lashes, it still remains strong. And yes, there is evidence of scars on that building, but it looks somehow even more delightful for them. Wouldn't you love for that to be true of you? That as you endure this world, as you work heartily and press on through your various jobs and tasks, that though those tasks will weigh upon you, you would still emerge the other side a person of peace, a beautiful, fortitudinous human being. How can we do that? I believe that we need to turn our attention to the one who has done it first and done it better. That Jesus Christ is truly the perfectly fortitudinous man who endured the cross, but not with a posture of anxiety and frustration. The testimonies that we have do not say that Jesus was being whipped and beaten and was cursing those around him and saying, "Ugh, can you believe these people who are being so cruel to me?" Instead, he cried out in prayer, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." He persevered to the point of death with perfect patience so that you and I, in God's eyes, might be counted as perfectly patient and perfectly persevering. I'm so grateful for Christ's perfect fortitude, and I hope that today it can inspire me and it can inspire you to live with that same fortitude, to commit to the Lord all the tasks that are before us, both the challenging and the easy, to offer them up in prayer and in worship to Him, and that we would endure them in a way, with a posture that results in us becoming stronger and more beautiful for it as we look more like Christ every day.
Thanks again for joining us today. If you enjoyed our content, consider subscribing. Studio 70 is a division of the King's Academy, a K-12 private Christian school in West Palm Beach, Florida. For more information, visit studio70.tv or tka.net.